I'll tell you one thing, I am absolutely busting to watch us playing St Mirren in the League Cup next Sunday. No, I'm really looking forward to that now. I'm really looking forward to that now because we have won one of our last 7 league games and we've won one of our last 12 European games. All we've got just now is league games and European games, and we show absolutely no signs of bucking the trend that we're on in both those spheres, both those arenas. So I give us a bit of domestic cup knockout action next Sunday. Maybe that'll be the thing to change the way things are going. You make big promises, you make huge promises to yourself, and you do it in a public forum, you do it to a massive public that's totally hanging on your every word, and then you just can't back it up. You deserve all the criticism you get, Alec, because I did say to you that I was going to, in summertime, I was going to go to the cinema. I was going to make a point of bucking my own trend of having been to the cinema just 4 times in the last 15 years. I need to get back out there. I need to invest in something emotionally, intellectually, something other than Rangers, something other than... I mean, we had the World Cup this summer, but it doesn't count, the World Cup, does it? It's still football, and it's a kind of holiday from club football, but you end up getting just as worked up in a different sort of way. It's kind of a parallel nervous system that you employ for the World Cup, for Scotland, and then even watching the way Argentina are, kind of cheating their way at certain point, their shenanigans. You're getting upset about that, but at the same time, you can think, I might want to see Messi winning another World Cup just to prove that he is better than Pele. I mean, I might have kind of tired bitumen in the end of my nerves. My nerves don't really get frayed anymore after having watched Rangers since 2012, but you still get kind of worked up, you're still draining yourself, so you might get into something that's just non-football, get away from it altogether, a proper holiday. I wasn't going away anywhere abroad this summer, just went down south for a week, but I promised myself, didn't I? I said I'm going to go to the cinema. What was the big 4 films on just now? It was The Invite, Obsession, the guys with the swords and all that, and the big horse, the Odyssey. That was the Odyssey, and the Backrooms. That was 4 Backrooms, the Odyssey, the Invite, and Obsession. I'm going to go and see all 4 of them. At the cinema. And my wife's a teacher, so she's off for like 6 weeks. So I thought that doesn't fit, boy. Just to get into something else. So I've had relaxed the nerve endings. I've relaxed the brain. It's got involved in something else. That's the only other thing. I mean, food and drink takes kind of calms me down, but doesn't take my mind off the football. So I can get away from it and come back to you guys fresh and ready to go. Another intense season following Rangers, but no, I just didn't have. I went to see The Invite, went to see Obsession, and then I've not been to see the Odyssey yet. There's still a few days of the holidays left for us, so I'm maybe going to see the Odyssey. You want to see that at an IMAX, and it's heavily booked out just now, but it's running for quite a long time because it's taken in so much money, so probably get to see the Odyssey at the cinema this week. But Obsession, that was phenomenal. Even then I was finding it quite irritating, the youngsters running about as moving and stuff, and my peripheral vision, a bit of misophonia and that, they've got their phones on. It's a bit irritating, but I sat in there and I hung in there, went to see The Invite. It's in Ashton Lane, a wee art house cinema, the famous Grosvenor Cinema at Ashton Lane. That was good, that was really enjoyed it, really funny, really good film, quite deep, but a few tears at the end. It was nice, but Backrooms, in fairness, I've not seen the Odyssey yet, but Backrooms, it was more a case of my missus gets quite claustrophobic. She's got just a tiny bit of claustrophobia. We went up the Siegesal, the big tower, the Love Parade and all that in Berlin. We were heading up there, obviously this is 10 stone ago, Doogie. We were heading up there a few years back, and I love going up the big tower. I mean, I'm not got a very good head for heights either. That's a wee reference there, Vertigo. We're talking about kind of top 10 sight and sound, top 20 sight and sound movies. I was trying to get a few of them out the way as well. On the telly, we got the new telly, and I tell you that, we got a new telly, so make the best of the old BFI player and try to get myself into cinema, become a bit of a half-arse cinephile, if nothing else. I said cinephile. But what about it's Vertigo, Kim Novak, we're up the Siegesal years ago, and my wife's like, I can't got this, I can't got, and I thought it was just because she was right behind me, and I'm huge, I'm massive, I don't know, she's in a living room, she's in a lot of cars and all that with me, you're a massive fat get, Alex, so that would make MD feel claustrophobic. It does, but she So I thought, what I know about this Backrooms, you might end up feeling a bit claustrophobic, Ken. You might, if we're in a cinema, it's maybe not the best thing. So she's always wanted to go to cinema. It's me, it's like, no, I'm no fancy it. So I was being a bit evil there, and she sussed me straight away. You'd have used that as an excuse to watch it in the house, aren't you? But it's actually quite expensive. I didn't realise how expensive it is to go to the cinema these days. It's not a cheap thing. So we saw it last night. We got the new Telly. Let's really properly christen the new Telly. I'm doing that thing where everything I watched lately is fantastic. I watched the Robin Hood with, what do you call it, the Scott, Ridley Scott, Robin Hood with Russell Crowe, and I didn't realise, I'd seen it before when it came out, I've seen it at least 10 years ago. It came out in 2010, and I thought, what a pile of pants. But I'm watching it in the new Telly. It's just not even a fancy Telly, it's just I'm so slow and so technophobic when it comes to replacing these things. We just got a kind of standard normal Telly that you'll probably have in your house. Oh my God, it's me. I think I checked this the other night. It's almost like I might not want to talk about the game itself, but I thought it's just really good. And Russell Crowe, I didn't realise it was Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac, when I saw him in A Most Violent Year, I thought, that is an actor. That guy, it's a fantastic film, A Most Violent Year. I really like Oscar Isaac. Probably fancy him as well. Really good looking guy. But he plays King John, the kind of evil character. He's basically the equivalent of Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator with Russell Crowe by Ridley Scott, and you're watching it, you're thinking, this is Ridley Scott. He did Gladiator, he just wanted to do a whole lot of kind of Roman stuff, the sandals and all that. But he's done Robin Hood. It's a backstory, it's a Backrooms, it's a origin story for Robin Hood. But you think he's not really wanting to do the Robin Hood thing, Ridley Scott. You can tell that he just wants to basically do the Norman invasion, the Norman invasion of Britain, or he wants to do the period 1066 up until the Crusades and all that, and it's 1199, I think it's set in. But by the end of it, let's watch this. This is bloody brilliant. I've seen a proper Telly, and the horses are coming through the screen at you, and all that. And the bit at the end is obviously trying to do. It's like kind of reverse Saving Private Ryan, in terms of the boats have come for the landing craft have come for Normandy, and they're landing on beaches in Britain. And the other side of the channel, and the arrows and that are getting used, the MG42s are getting used on the coast. I know Saving Private Ryan's based in Belfast. I know it did actually happen. It's hardly cheaper than that, but it's he's trying to do the Norman invasion of Britain, and it's a really good battle scene. I'm thinking this is good. And Oscar Isaac's obviously the kind of Joaquin Phoenix, and Russell Crowe's just doing his thing of running about in a terrible kind of pseudo Shakespearean accent, stage actory accent, and it was good fun. I was really enjoying that. And what else did I watch? I watched something really good. It was an awful kind of rom-com thing. Even my missus was like, I'm binning this, I'm not watching this. And I sat up and I watched the rest of it with Will Ferrell and her that played June Carter. That was good. This is terrible, but I'm really enjoying it because the picture was fantastic compared to our old Telly, and a holiday vibe, trying to chill out and all that. So I was really enjoying everything, but I thought this is going to wear out. Watch as much nonsense as possible. Clive Myrie, Homes Under the Hammer, totally would. Everything just looks fantastic on the new Telly. I thought, but I'm going to. I didn't ruin it by watching Rangers in Europe, because I watched them on the laptop in Rangers TV. I haven't really worked out how to cast that up onto the telly yet. Probably just as well. That would have ruined the whole thing. But I thought we're going to have to just sit down and watch a proper film. One last go at a proper modern film that's proper quality, and then you feel that's maybe going to retrospectively take away from this moment of just enjoying anything at all in the new telly, because it looks and sounds a lot better technically. So we ended up, what did we watch? We started off with La Strada. Watched La Strada, and it's a Fellini film. I never watched a Fellini film. Well, I've watched half of 8.5, so I always say, I've watched 4 1/4, dinner parties and that. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. Sensational part. A total rogue, an absolute cad, totally urbane. My patter at dinner parties, that I never go to. So I've seen that, and that's disgraceful. If you want to see, about cinema, you've got to see Fellini. So I'll catch up with 8.5, and obviously got to see La Dolce Vita. I mean, I'm with Tim Vickery's interviewed all through the World Cup. They're coming from Tim Vickery's house in Rio, and he's got La Dolce Vita poster behind him in his wee wall behind him when he's on the old laptop there. So I was getting constantly reminded I've not seen La Dolce Vita, which is an absolute disgrace. So we'll watch that. But it started off yesterday with La Strada, which is probably the third most important, third most famous Fellini film. And oh my God, it was, and it's big Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn, he's phenomenal. He's tremendous. I think Antonio, he's probably Antonio Quintanario or something. I don't know. I thought he's probably Italian, and the folk in the days, back in the 20s and that, because of the bigotry in America, they would change their names. Jewish actors and that would take off the the Berg or the Steen at the end of their name, and they would shorten to something else, and just to cover that up. And I thought it's going to be the same. Was it Kirk Douglas? I mean, just called himself after a Scottish church, Kirk Douglas, but his name, so it was Czechoslovakian Jewish. He was Kirk Douglas and his family, but they changed their names. I thought that's what it was. I didn't even know off the top of my head that Anthony Quinn. I looked it up later on. He was born in Chihuahua, and he's playing Zampano, the strongman. It's Italian, kind of basically travelling people, basically Romany people in Rome, so to speak, in Italy. It's just after the war. Life's hard. They're trying to make their way in the world, and the woman that plays, is it Gelfamina? That's his. No, it's not his wife. He just picks her up. He buys her for basically 20 quid. Because of her mum, because life's so hot. The stuff that happens in Thailand and what have you these days for women in the kind of sex industry that are shoved into that because of poverty. He goes and buys somebody. He's already killed her sister. If you don't know how, you just know that he's definitely killed her, and he goes and buys her, and they just travel. You just think, going, I'm watching a film here about a guy. He's a strong man. And he goes around all these towns and villages in Italy, and he puts on a strongman show where he busts out of this chain, and it's totally rigged so he can burst out of it. And he's this lassie with him who's obviously got learning difficulties, and he's abusing her sexually and otherwise. And she's kind of falling in love with him because she's so kind of naive, doesn't really know the ways of the world, and but it's a way of her getting to see the world. And I thought this has to be, it's obviously some sort of allegory. And I knew straight away, I was like, it's Commedia dell'arte, because Pagliacci, Pagliacci, Loncavallo, and the what do you call them, the Harlequins, Arlequin, and all that kind of stuff. The Commedia dell'arte players, it would. A famous form of entertainment, street entertainment, if you like, for back in the day in Italy. I thought it's obviously a testament to that, but it just looks straightforward. He's wearing a kind of flyer, a beat up kind of pilot's jacket. He's wearing a kind of beat up pilot's jacket like he got off a US serviceman, because obviously a lot of bombing going on by the states of Italy towards the end of the Second World War. I thought maybe it's definitely not. And they park somewhere, and there's a big Esso sign behind them. Esso garages are setting up, and I thought this has to be, it's a fake strongman, he's so machismo and all that, but he's actually a con man and he's a total coward. Is this Mussolini? He's supposed to be a representation of Mussolini. And I've read a few clever folk afterwards talking, doing reviews of it, and they're saying, it's clearly an allegory, but they never say of what, and there's the whole, Martin Scorsese, he loves it as well, and he's talking about the Francis of Assisi thing, and I know that it's Francis of Assisi travelling. And he's on the road, La Strada, the road, and I don't know if it's the road back from the recovery, road back from the Second World War, and like the guy who's, I thought, why is it dubbed? It's in Italian, and I'm watching my subtitles, but it's actually, they recorded it in English originally, and he's born in Chihuahua, Mexico. He's been a big strong man. He's after, Chihuahua is one of the most murderous places on the planet, the real place in Mexico. But you think, big Anthony Quinn, big Mr. Machismo. He's born in a place named after a cute wee dog. But it was great. It's fantastic. It's just, you're sitting there going, why am I crying? I don't understand. Why is this so good? You think it must be the war, and it must be. And I was saying, it's Commedia dell'arte. My wife's going, she's quite like Charlie Chaplin, and we watched this Martin Scorsese review afterwards. It's a 10-minute video on YouTube, and he goes, it's quite, obviously, it pays a lot of testimony to the Commedia dell'arte tradition in Italy. I'm like, thank you, Mr. Genius here, Mr. Film Critic. And obviously, the character that's played by Fellini's wife is mimicking Charlie Chaplin, and she's like, I fucking ruin you. She doesn't even care, and she's still clever about these things, and most people are. So I thought, this is really on the road and all that, and recovering from stuff I don't even know what it is. And then last night we watched Backrooms. It's like, we've got to date properly, we've got to get a colour film, an up-to-date film, and if we watch it in the house, then you don't have to be like, we're in a cinema and you've wasted money. It's all 16 quid, $15.99 to get it on Prime. And that's mere money to Bezos, a total wanker, but watched it anyway. And halfway through, she's like, I can't handle this, it's too close. I thought it would be. She's got a wee touch of claustrophobia there. So she's like, I can't really watch the rest of this. It's not scary, it's just pissing me off. It's making me kind of uptight and all that. And I'm thinking, that's what it is. As I sat and watched the rest of it like merciless, selfish prick. I think that's what it is. I think it's a bit like the Blair Witch Project, and when half of the trick is on the Blair Witch Project, which is like not over a quarter of a century older. The boy that does this film was like, minus 7 years old when the Blair Witch Project was made. But they use that thing where they're moving the cameras about all the time. It's kind of found footage, stock kind of found footage type film. But they're using the camera and that, they're spinning it about all the time, and it's discombobulated. It's actually making you kind of physically sick, just motion sickness, and that adds to the whole sense of unease. It's a kind of cheap trick, and there's a bit of that going on with Backrooms, where it's the claustrophobia gets really emphasised with kind of cheap camera tricks, and the amazing scenery, the amazing mise en scène, the amazing set that they've built, obviously, to film this thing in. But that's a bit of a cheap trick. But I watched it to the end, and I thought, it's just depressing. It's that thing of depression. Films that are spooky, and I like to read a few M.R. James ghost stories at Christmas. Things that are kind of spooky, quite atmospheric at first. It's quite, this is quite a thrill. This is nice. There's a kind of coziness about it, like being around the fireplace or something. It's the Higger effect, as the Danes would call it. You get a bit of that reading a few ghost stories at Christmas time, when everybody wants to be snuggled up in the house and the winter's outside and all that. And it makes a bit. But if you read, and I'm thinking these are quite good, these M.R. James ghost stories, a bit corny and all that, a bit of their day. But I tried reading more than 2 or 3. I thought I'm going to read a whole this book of short stories, M.R. James ghost stories. And I read a couple every Christmas, but I've had it for about 10 years now, and I think, just fucking finish it, just read them to the end. But by January, and if I've read more than 3, I'm just finding them they're creepy in the way they don't mean to be creepy. It's just, I think the truth that has to be there in any good story, when it comes to ghost stories, it's just about depression. It's about stuff that somebody who's dead, but they did something terrible, or something terrible happened to them, so their soul won't quite go away, and you're crawling about in the middle of the night, and there's no lights on, and it's just creepy and depressing. And that's what I got at the end of Backrooms. I just thought, it's actually just depressing, because it's true what they were saying. I saw somebody, I remember when I was reading some clever people reviewing that, and it's quite good. You can read the reviews once you've read the thing. Once you've watched the thing, you can go and read all the reviews about it, get the plot spoilers, without any fear of plot spoilers. And somebody was saying that it might be something to do with Alzheimer's, might be a little kind of essay partly on Alzheimer's. I thought that's quite good, because I can see that, because it's kind of fragments of a real life. Not if you see somebody that's suffering from, I mean, we all know somebody who's, or have known someone who's suffering from Alzheimer's, and it's really heartbreaking, because they're there, it's the same person, the same kind of outer shell, but it becomes more and more of a shell, and it's quite disturbing, and it's really depressing. And probably their interior life, what it's like to have Alzheimer's as well, they can remember little fragments that are increasingly, becoming smaller and smaller fragments of their actual life, of their actual personality, until they're just a husk. Really, it's absolutely heartbreaking, and it's really grim, and it's a slow, horrible death. And I felt as if I come away thinking, this is just depressing. It's really depressing. There's cheap camera tricks, and also it's properly depressing. But that's because it worked. That's because this is a 20-year-old that's directing this, and it actually worked. And I thought to myself, because it's like if you've got a new manager, and you see Hibs, and we had Hibs at Ibrox, but it was midweek, and the season was over, and we've equalised near the end, and our captain has just left, but he was supposed to leave by playing in that game, and they've scored a goal, Hibs, and they've made a fool of him, the captain as well, and we can't really get back at them on the night. And we equalise late on, you think, well, at least we got a draw, and then Hibs go back up the park and score straight away, and their fans are all celebrating and getting it round you. But that manager leaves, and it's another season entirely, and this is the beginning of a season, and it's a weekend game, and Hibs have scored against you, and of course we've got Lauren Shankland as captain, and he's a Hearts icon, so the Hibs supporters again are hating on their captain, and they score first, and they're going up to our supporters again, and taunting us after they've scored the goal, and we equalise near the end, and it's like, come on, right now we do have something to play for. I mean, it's all to play for, it's just right at the start of the season, and Hibs again go up the park and score straight away, and it's like you're stuck in this kind of maze at the back of your mind. You're stuck in this maze at the back of what you actually want, what you think is the front of the shop, what you think is Rangers winning trophies, going forward, finally all the money we've got, all the investment we've got, we're going to get there, we're going to get there, but you're just stuck in this bit at the back where you just seem to get the same thing again and again, like a big horrible maze, and you keep meeting different depressing versions of inadequate you. How you doing, folk? This is your Fat Egg immediate post-match reaction pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet tonight, 9:30 live on the Gersnet YouTube channel. I don't know who's on it, but good luck to them. I'm coming to you in association with Gersnet, and I'm also coming to you in association with Ragtag. Ragtag, the adjective Ragtag. I was flicking through the film channels yesterday, the Sky film channels. I'm not going to talk about this fucking game. I've always been talking about the game. From the beginning of the pod, I've been talking about the game. I was watching... before we watched after watching Strada, I thought, will we watch Backrooms? I was flicking through the channels at Sky Movies, and up came Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is on. I don't know anything about Pacific Rim. I don't know what it is. I'm assuming it's Michael Bay. Is it a Michael Bay film? It seems any adverts, any posters for it, I can't really concentrate on the posters because of the name Pacific Rim. And Pacific Rim means two things to me, right? I think it maybe something to do with monsters or saving the earth or robots or diggers or I don't know what it is, but it seems kind of very Michael Bay-ish. But it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of New York, Greenwich Village to be specific, and also the fact that I'm fucking infantile. I am totally infantile and ashamed of myself with my stupid sense of humour. I love a pratfall, I love farting noises, and also I was sitting in Greenwich Village, and it's just round the corner. This is in 2012. This is 2000 or 2013. We were in, the second time was in New York, and I was sitting, it was in a fucking Starbucks. I mean, all the places you can go to in Greenwich Village, and we were sitting in a Starbucks, but it was, we weren't getting breakfast at the hotels, it was an emergency. We're just round the corner from the Stonewall Inn, in Greenwich Village, and in Friends, we have those little captions, those little shots in Friends. Friends was the sitcom, that Stuart Cosgrove, Mr. Man of the People, brought over. He's just a TV executive, he's a massive TV executive. He's not working in the BBC. He's bringing Friends. He's meeting up with the cast of Friends to get Friends over to British TV 30 odd years ago. Don't let him tell you some like Marxist-Leninist hero. But he was. Friends came to Britain, Ross and Rachel and all that kind of stuff, and they have those. It was all filmed in LA. It's a sitcom. It's filmed before a live studio audience, obviously, and it's a sitcom, and it's great. But the idea is that they're in Greenwich Village, the flat, the flat that they're most usually in, and the Central Park. Because it's named after Central Park. It's all in New York, usually in Lower Manhattan, usually Greenwich Village that it's supposed to be set in. So one of the kind of these, I don't know if it's an establishing shot they call it, but just give you a wee brief shot between different scenes or just after the commercial break. They still have them every week, like a shot of Washington Park or a shot of some fountain in Central Park. But one of the other ones they'd have is the village cigar shop, the big cigar shop, the Greenwich Village, and it's a cigar shop. I don't think it's a cigar shop anymore. I think it's since been bought, but it certainly was when I went the second time in 2013. It's 2013, I think. And it just sticks out at the sides. It's like just a ground floor, but it only goes up to ground floor height. Or first floor, as they call it in the States. Just next to a big tenement at a kind of corner. I think it's a Christopher Street where the Stonewall Inn is, where they had the Stonewall riot in 1969. And what's the other street? Is it 7th Avenue, maybe? It's right in the corner. It's kind of V-shaped position. So it's a tiny wee building, but they'd put these massive billboards. They'd use the gable of the tenement it was coming off of, and the flat roof of this tiny building, to have these massive billboards above it. The Village Cigar, a proper cigar shop in Greenwich Village, that was the most famous thing about it. But they'd always have, and I was sitting there, and I'm sitting with Mrs. and we got a coffee, and we're sitting there, that's that fucking, it's right across the street. That's a fucking, that's that place you see in Friends, like you see in all different films, and that it's the Village Cigar shop. And the poster, the billboards that they had above it, then were advertising Pacific Rim, and I'm like, it's not rimming. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. And every time I see Pacific Rim, I'm like, have you been pacifically rimmed lately? I mean, there's no like, I'm not being homophobic or anything like that. It works. Any rimming thing can work for anybody, whatever your sexual preference, whatever you're into, but it just, it's never going to happen with me. I'm one of the folk who just talks about it all the time. There's no, who's going to have any day with this? But I'm rimming myself. I fucking grow up. I'm like, Pacific Rim. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it is. But I saw specific, and I thought maybe I'll try and find out what Pacific Rim is. So I looked in the wee synopsis they give you when you click on the info button when you're flicking through the channels on your TV, and it said a ragtag bunch of, and I'm like, oh, fucking get that, I'll get it off. I don't know why, because I loved the Dirty Dozen when I was a kid. When you get a ragtag bunch, you always get a ragtag bunch of criminals, ragtag bunch of footballers, ragtag bunch of policemen, a ragtag bunch of sportsmen, a ragtag bunch of lawyers, whatever. And I was reading one of the things about Strada, and it was saying, there's a bit where they join a wee kind of actual circus, the two main characters in Strada, and they join a ragtag circus, and it's ragtag, and it's people don't really get on, they don't really match, there's no really any kind of cohesion on the surface between these people. There's nothing that you would think, and they usually they fall out in a film scenario when it's a ragtag bunch of whatever that gets together. It's a compound word, isn't it? It must be a compound of rag and tag. But the idea is, and you have them all fighting with each other usually. Maybe like Star Wars, and folk are writing like Star Wars, and there's Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia hates Han Solo. That's more of a meet cute though, isn't it? That's more the kind of romance thing, but you get a big woolly, Chewbacca, and then the wee R2-D2 and C-3PO, they're ragtag. I mean, even R2-D2 and C-3PO don't go on with each other, don't even speak the same. Well, they speak the same, they understand each other, but they express themselves in different ways. They look completely different, and then you got Chewbacca, who's, God knows what he is, a big Wookiee. He's a Wookiee, and then you got a princess, and you got a guy who's a mad kind of maverick, he's just a hustler, isn't he? Really, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker, who's just really good on Blue Sky and Twitter these days. Luke Sky. So they're ragtag, they're totally ragtag, really famous ragtag stuff. And I'm thinking, actually, it must be quite good. But it seems such a cliche, it's such a trope. But then cinema's all about tropes. And I'm thinking, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Maybe I don't like ragtag because that's your fucking Fitba team right now, isn't it? It's your fucking Fitba team right now. We've got all these players that have been there for about a year through a traumatic season last season, and then we've got all these players that have joined us this season, and that's turned into trauma as well. So they're just all managing to be ragtag. I think Darren McInnes has just got so many players who are all kind of, you could imagine him in the first team. He's definitely done stuff. He's done good stuff, and Darren McInnes will have managed Hearts obviously last season against most of these players. Some of them he's brought from Hearts to join Rangers this season. I'm watching them as well, and I know all these guys are capable of being decent at some point or another, but the ragtag, but all I can hope for is it turns into a trope, it turns into a Hollywood trope, whereas they will all eventually gel, there'll be total harmony, the differences will be ironed out, it'll become an actual quality, it'll become a virtue, the differences between all these players. It's a team. Ragtag becomes a team, it's teamwork, but that's what the sport is all about, getting various guys of various nations. When Rangers played the ball up the right hand side in the first half of the day, you've got a Croatian goalkeeper knocking it out to a Serbian right back who's knocking it up to a Japanese right winger who's pitting it into the box looking for a Scotsman or a Portuguese, and one of the Portuguese gets replaced by a German. We've got more Belgians in the park than Scotsmen at one point in the day. It's just, we're ragtag, we're totally ragtag, as most football teams are these days, but we just haven't got to that point where we're so I'm sponsored by Jersnet and Ragtag. My name's Alec Anderson, Devanir Gurry. One man on a lonely platform, one case sitting by his side. Two eyes staring cold and silent, show fear as he turns to hide. We fade to grey. We fade to grey. David Gray. Maybe he scored that winner against us. It was a cup final about 10 years ago. I remember it quite well, but then I'm old. It's probably been forgotten by most other people. I'm a stickler for detail and a bit of trivia, but he definitely scored a late winner against us in some sort of cup final somewhere in Glasgow. David Gray, some point about a decade ago, and that's him. He can't beat us at Easter Road. Can he have Hibs actually beaten us at Easter Road for the last 20 years? We're all right, Easter Road. If it's a draw, it's a big result for Hibs. Beats Easter Road, but that's David Gray now beating us twice in a row. Twice in the space of 3 games. At our last 2 games at Ibrox, losing to Hibs last season and then losing to Hibs again in the very first home league game this season. My name's Alec Anderson, and I'm just here to waste time. I don't want to talk about it really. There's a whole lot of people will be visiting the podcast tonight that I don't want to be, and that's the problem. This is what Derek McInnes has got to answer to. There's actually Celtic fans out there that I want to talk to, and they want to talk to me kind of straight up. They're walking in eggshells. They can't get in touch with me when Rangers have get beat because they don't want me to think that they're coming on to slag me. They just want a bit of chat about films and stuff like that. But they can't get to talk to me, and I can't get to talk to them because fucking Rangers keep getting beat. I mean, we just keep getting beat. We keep fucking up. We keep having bad results. It really is quite unrelenting. But my name's Alec Anderson. That's one bit of information I'm definitely going to get to you. And I'm both the kind of Kane Parsons, Backrooms of Rangers podcasting, and also the Jane McDonald's Cruises of podcasting. I can do the meta stuff, I can do really depressing stuff, I can do horrific stuff. I mean, look at me, it's a horror film just looking at me. I can go deep and all that, but at the same time I'm just a big gorgeous diva who wants to sing a song while telling you all about my travels. I think the starting 11 today was Ivar Pander in goals. We had the new man, the Serbian fella Dragojević. He was definitely playing it right back today. He definitely was playing it right back. We thought he was a sitting midfielder. We weren't trying to work out what kind of midfielder he was. Oh, not today. He's going to be a right back with Ross McCrory on the bench. That's a bit of a blow for Ross McCrory, who had a terrible game the other night against Jagiellonia in Poland. At left back, it was two Romans, Mr. Solid, Mr. Regular. He's at the time. Big Emi Fernandez, not solid in his performances, but a regular pick now at centre half and starting his first game for Rangers, his first appearance for Rangers. Macania, the South African chap that we got in at centre half, we got that work clearance. We wanted to send him out on a different flight to get him out to Poland, then didn't play him. But he started at centre half today alongside Big Emi Fernandez. I think it was a 4-2-3-1. The sitting two was Cammy Devlin and Nico Raskin. Again, the only sign, the only sign of what I'm going to say of the pragmatism that we're expecting from Derek McInnes. The whole story with Derek McInnes was it was going to be. It wasn't going to be pretty. Maybe once he did a season in charge and he's really, got into his full flow. But at first, we were just expecting defensive stolidity at the expense of attacking flair. Yeah, we would maybe only win games 2-0, or Hibs would pull one back the days we started prepping for Thursday night's game. But Hibs have got a game in Europe. They played in Europe on Thursday night as well, even though it was at Easter Road. They've got a massive game next Thursday as well. It's just of no use to us whatsoever. You're thinking, it's not going to be pretty, but it will be solid. It will be boring, but that means the one thing we'll keep is clean sheets. Maybe you'll be struggling. Maybe a few 0-0s more than we wanted, but we'll get there. We'll get it over the line. We'll batter teams until they eventually give in. And no, what's the only sign of the pragmatism we're expecting from Derek McInnes so far is that he's utilising Nico Raskin. He's bringing him in. He's not giving it, right, Nico, you want away from this club, that's fine. You're not going to get in my team. Your attitude's no fixed. You're not concentrating properly. He's talked to him and he's thought, you want to play? Because you're not doing anything else anyway until somebody else comes in and buys you. We'll get you in the team. Brought him on at half-time. He was our best player against Jagiellonia on Thursday night, and that was him starting today. The sitting two, him and Cammy Devlin midfield. The three was out left. It was Finlay Curtis out right. Yokota making his first domestic start for Rangers. Daisuke Yokota, a new Japanese signing. I think the one and only Lawrence Shankland was playing basically a 10, or they could move up to be a twin striker with the one out-and-out striker, Youssef Chermiti, for whom we apparently had received a few hours before kick-off a massive bid, a club record bid, said the tweet that I briefly read from Chris Jack of Rangers Review in the Herald. He was saying that we'd received a club record bid from Galatasaray for Youssef Chermiti. A very small club, Galatasaray, so I don't know how they're managing to make such massive bids, but I'm assuming it's a club record for us, the club record bid. That would mean it's over 20 million that we got for Calvin Bassey from Ajax, so that's quite exciting. And he went and got himself injured today, so he's probably going to be unable to bring that money in for us. But I big Youssef Chermiti playing up front. It's just boring. It was side to side. I was talking my kind of wanky pseudo-intellectual pish that he's going to see right through the other night was about Hemingway, about Ernest Hemingway. My reaction to the Jagiellonia, my distraction in my Jagiellonia post-match reaction was about Hemingway, and I was talking about Hemingway books. I could have read any Hemingway book. I could have brought them all in, just had a good read at them all through the course of most of this game. It was a very, very boring game. Rangers with most of the possession, Hibs working like hell without coming. Hibs doing the low block thing. We don't see as much low block as we used to from our visitors at Ibrox. Why would they be blocking low when we're to be had, we're to be got at? But Aye, they were sitting in, but working very hard to catch us on the break, and we were just not really getting anywhere. Very much a team still gelling together. If half of them even want to be together, a lot of guys look as if they could be given a lot more for Rangers. But that's maybe just the way it goes when you're at the beginning of a massive project, and we're always at the beginning of a project. We've got project fatigue, we've got crisis fatigue as a support. Rangers did bugger all really in the first. So we got most of the ball, and then we go up to the Hibs about 11 minutes into the game. We send a long kind of over-ambitious ball into the Hibs box. Charmiti. I should mention Chuck Wani and Dan Neil. Who else? John Sterling. We also say Ross McCrory. A lot of guys dropped. The Asgard. These are the big hitters that were dropped from the starting 11 on Thursday away to Jagiellonia. So, whatever, I think, as I was saying in that podcast on Thursday nights, the one thing about this Rangers team right now, and I think it will remain for the rest of the season, is there's players on the bench that you think, why is he not starting? And there's players you don't really know who to replace them, who would be coming off to let them come on, because we've just got a properly massive squad. But the problem is we expect this massive squad to mean everybody's getting pushed for their place, so everybody's playing out their skin to keep their place. It just ups the intensity, makes everybody perform better. Right now it just looks like everybody's thinking, well, I'll get a game eventually, because he's pish as well. He's going out and I'll get in, and nobody's really giving it the proper effort. It's a terrible day, so we flow this ball forward. Big Charmiti goes towards it, doesn't get anywhere near it, and the Hibs player, and suddenly it's right. Mr. Don Robertson makes a signal for VAR. Right, let's hold up the play here. Something might have happened here. And we're like, what the hell what's happened here? And I just thought back to, it was at Hibs corner just 2 minutes earlier, where Hibs had floated the ball into our box, and Makanya, the South African debutant, he went up and headed the ball back across his own goal. It looked like he was going back across his own goal slightly, and then we cleared it up the park, and he got the welcome to Ibrox. Somebody behind me shouting, "You're supposed to fucking head it away for your goal, no towards it." But it was kind of square header, and I thought something's happened in there that's got in between him and the ball, made it uncomfortable, and might not even have come off his head. Up it goes, but you thought there's no way we did enough in the Hibs box there for it to be a possible penalty for Rangers. As it was saying up on the screen, penalty check, it was a possible penalty for Hibs, and sure enough they got it. Now, I've not seen it. I think I forgot to record it as well, but no doubt I'll see it in Sports Scene tonight again. I think it was on Premier Sport today, but folk in front of me with 5 minutes later were shown us that at first I thought it might have been a handball scenario that I hadn't seen. There's a kind of packed box, lots of guys up for the ball at the same time. Could be anything at all, something microscopic, but if it's a penalty, it's a penalty. And then the fellas in front of me were about 5-10 minutes later had it up on their phone. They were showing the replays on Premier Sport, and it seemed to be a push by our Serbian right back on a Hibs. It looked very, very light, very, very slight. I don't know if that was actually the. I'm not going to go OTT year nay criticising their defence or criticising the referee or whatever until I've actually seen it. Nobody really cares what I think anyway. Sorry, I'm bigging myself up there. We'll get Alex's proper opinion once he's seen it. But it was a penalty. It was a penalty to Hibs, and they stuck it away. And I was like, well, that's nice and early anyway. This crisis, this kind of mini crisis, we're drawing our first league game. We've lost just by a single goal away in Poland. Maybe we need someone to actually buck up our ideas completely. Something to go. We're properly falling behind early doors in this game. Let's go out there and just turn this round. And it didn't really happen. It didn't really happen at all. We had two Romans took a slash at the ball from the kind of left back spot, and it was up towards the top left hand corner. Hibs keeper, good save for the cameras to palm that away. Probably the best bit was Yokota, who was, I think we got man of the match from the sponsors. I think it was deserved. Very industrious. It really is. I don't want to get all stereotypy about the Japanese, but he was working his ass off. And considering the guy is just in the door, it's kind of shaming for some of our other players. But at the second time of asking, he beats his guy out on the right-hand side. He goes along the byline, cuts it back, and Charmiti, I don't know what kind of contact he got on it, and I don't know if it was the goalkeeper, the Hibs goalkeeper, or a defender that saved it, but it was cleared off the line. That was probably the nearest we came to scoring to a bit more towards the end of the first half, just getting towards half-time. We're Serbian right-back, whose name keeps slipping my mind, because the wee Sweepie Guy is coming into the deepest corner of Ibrox to get me. if this doesn't prove that he's out to get me, I don't know what does. Do you know what I mean? I'm literally at a dead end. I'm in the back room. I'm in the back of all the back rooms, and he's coming at me like a big, massive, 7-foot tall, peg-legged pirate with an eye patch made of big dusters at the front of his motor. Sorry, folks. I'm just so sick and tired of talking about games like this. It's just fucking brutal. I can barely raise the enthusiasm to remember what happened. What the hell's his fucking name? The Serbian guy. Anyway, I had it earlier on, but he had a shot that just passed the post, and then there was a couple of corners right in injury time from Hibs, where one of them kind of scooped just past our post. Another one was cleared. Big Fernandez coming in and blocked it. He seemed to have his arm across his stomach. I was worried that was going to be a penalty. I don't know if it didn't come off his arm or off his balls. I don't know, but it was cleared anyway. And before that, just maybe about 10 minutes before the end of the first half, I never even noticed it. Nobody around about me had noticed it. Trinity went off, and he was stretchered off. And on came. We hadn't noticed he'd actually left the pitch. He'd gone off the field of play, and next time was a stretcher coming to get him, and Ryan Nadiri came on to replace him, so that was a bit concerning. Hope he's okay. Half time, we made another change. Now, what was that other change at half time? Diamandi, did he come on? Diamandi came on for somebody who wasn't playing particularly brilliantly. It was the Serbian guy whose name I can't get, and so we had Diamandi coming into midfield, and Finlay Curtis comes over. So Finlay Curtis played in the actual same wing, not tactically, but just the same physical, stretch of grass the entire game. Having played outside left in the first half, he's playing right back in the second half. Young Finlay Curtis, again, another kick to the teeth for Ross McCrory, although he did get on later on and got an actual heat to the teeth, I think, later. And we plugged away and all that, but we weren't looking any sharper. We weren't looking anyway. Dragojević, sorry. He went off at half-time for Diamandi. And Diamandi had one of those games where I didn't notice him at all. I'm thinking, your folk are right, Diamandi isn't doing anything at all. But I didn't notice him until he was 1 yard short of blocking somebody that he'd chased right back into our box, or getting on the end of a shot that had been saved by their goalkeeper or blocked by a defender. He always seemed to be right in the outskirts of the kind of last-ditch stuff at either end. But I couldn't see what he was doing in the middle of the park for the rest of the game. We had the one and only Lawrence Shankland had a shot that would come off the bar. That was just after the hour mark. Just before that, Nico Raskin had a shot that was palmed out by the goalkeeper. I think that was the one that landed just short of Diamandi's feet to put away the rebound. But 55 minutes, christening moment for Lawrence Shankland, our captain, the icon we got from Hearts, the ready-made hero, got his first kind of bollocking from the Ibrox crowd. The ball was cut back to him by Yokota, our new hero. He was cut back to him, and he's just kind of at the edge of the box, middle of the box, and he took a touch, and he got stopped, and it got cleared. I mean, it'd been absolutely sensational if he'd scored, but somebody said in front of me, I mean, at Hearts he was hitting him first time. How's he not doing it? So that's the first moment of criticism for Lawrence Shankland, for the hero. That's three competitive games in, and we haven't won any of them, so that's fair enough. He's actually done quite well. It was awful. It was plugging away, and the goal that we got, we brought on Asgard and Gassama at one point, and Gassama gets to the byline, pulls the ball back, and he pulls it back too far for Ryan Nadiri, who's going to the front post, and no far enough for Lawrence Shankland, who's more kind of penalty spot. But a Hibs defender comes in there and puts it straight into the bottom corner for us. It was an own goal. First I thought it might be Nadiri that scored, but this is 5 minutes to go of normal time, so everybody gets a wee lift. There's a big, massive cheer. Here we go. This is going to be great. This is the way things suddenly turn around, isn't it? When you're on a bad run, things suddenly turn around when you least expect it. A couple of goals in the last 5 minutes. That'd be fantastic. It did not pan out like that at all. We rallied a wee bit. We got camped outside the Hibs box. And then the second minute, 4 minutes of injury time, you're thinking, fucking 4 minutes injury time. I mean, there's been about 15 substitutions by both teams, and then Ross McCrory, as I say, he got a wee facial injury. He was down for a bit. So I thought, this be much more injury time than that. I wonder if that's going to be enough for us to win this game. No, it wasn't. It was enough for Hibs to win it, though. As they went up the park in about the third minute of injury time, and the guy had a shot from the far corner of the box, the kind of right corner, right corner of the 18-yard box, and it just seemed to creep right. A different version of the first goal we lost to Jagiellonia the other night. I'm hearing that it took a nick off to Romans, but it just crawled into the faraway corner. Just a horrible goal to lose. We looked completely amateurish in the concession of it, and that's Hibs away celebrating again, and that's it is depressing as feck, almost as depressing as this overblown and yet really, really enthusiastic about the film stuff. Now, when it comes to Rangers, I can't even remember the names of the players that we've bought, because they're going to have to make me remember their names by starting to bloody play. Fuck it. On Friday night, I was watching. I'm not going to talk about it again. On Friday night, I was watching a documentary about, what's his name? The guy, Albert Brooks. Didn't know about Albert Brooks. Is this film Defending My Life? You watch the Criterion Closet stuff, the Criterion Collection, a lot of art house films, and they've got all these superstars, movie superstars, John Hamm and all that, coming out the Criterion Closet Collection. De Niro's done one as well, and they pick out, quickly, they've got like 5 minutes, and they pick out as many, they're surrounded by these DVDs, Blu-rays, and they pick out as many Blu-rays as possible and they start discussing things like Fellini and all that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not seeing any Fellini. That's why I was watching La Strada. And a couple of folk picked out, Defending My Life, Albert Brooks, Defending My Life. I've never heard of that, and I think it's a big hit in America. It's one of the, it just seems to me, from what I've seen of a version of, the Powell and Pressburger, the matter of life and death. Seems like a modern version of that, maybe a bit of a rip-off. But Albert Brooks, I was like, yeah, I really like Albert Brooks. I've discovered him. He was in A Most Violent Year, of course. He's in that along with Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain. A Most Violent Year. If you haven't seen it, what is phenomenal soundtrack? Oh my God. Bit of Marvin in there, it's tremendous. A great film, really subtle film, really kind of brutal. It's a great film. Watch that. But he's in that, he's tremendous in that. And of course, it was in Taxi Driver, obviously. And I remembered him from, who could forget him, is the stab-happy gangster in Drive. He's fantastic in Drive. A really convincing performance. I like this guy. I want to know more about Albert Brooks. And it turned out he was a comedian when he started. There's this documentary all about him by the late Rob Reiner. And it's awful. It's terrible. He just comes across like a total, egomaniacal prick. One of these things, that's awful. And he's really keen on telling folk how brilliant he is and all that. And later on that night, something I'd recorded about a month ago or so. It was the old BBC programme Reel to Reel. It was on BBC 4, which isn't making anything new. It's just all repeats. And it was that brilliant Irish film critic. Oh, what's his name again? Oh my God! But he's absolutely tremendous. Really intense accent, intense voice. Mark Cousins. I'm talking to Rod Steiger. I think it was about 2000. This thing was filmed, and he's talking to the now much departed Rod Steiger. Phenomenal actor on the waterfront, in the back of the taxi with Marlon Brando. And he's talking to Rod Steiger, and it's tremendous. And at one point, he says, he said there's a film Rod Steiger did, which is basically he's playing an Irish rebel, in the States, mind you, who's sticking up for the Confederacy and all that. And Mark Cousins saying that's your greatest performance, and he says, have you seen The Pawnbroker and all that? And it's basically they're having a laugh, and they show a bit of that film, and Rod Steiger goes to him, you're Irish. That's the Irish nationalist thing. That's what's appealing to you, isn't it? About that, and he's like, aye, it is. And they're just having banter and all that, and he's totally no way offended. And that. So you've got a guy who's absolutely phenomenal. Oscar material, just one of the greatest actors of all time, and the heat of the night and all that. Films with nice on the waterfront with Brando and all that. One of the most classic scenes of all time, and he's just doing total banter, and he's just no caring if anybody's slagging, and he's slagging them back, and he's telling you everything about how shit his life was at various, how he made an arse of various things and all that, and so it was really, really good. Whereas a guy, Albert Brooks, who I'm like, I just got to know him quite recently. I thought he's really good. He's having to justify himself and a bit cheap and a bit. I end up really not liking him. Derek McInnes might not be the Rod Steiger. He might never turn into the Rod Steiger of management, or even the Rod Steiger of Rangers management. Although he's get plenty of time, and I think he will get plenty of time, and he should get plenty of time, because I like the way he talks. Now that's not what it's all about. It's about how you manage. But the way he comes across, Derek McInnes, I believe him. He understands what's going on here, and I think he'll know what to do about it. And this is with Danny Rule, and certainly with Russell Martin, this time last season we were drawn. Russell Martin got to a better start in the league than Derek McInnes has this season. A better start, full stop. We drew our first, was it 4 or 5 league games under under Russell Martin, and we were never convinced. None of us were ever convinced with Russell Martin. And when you get interviewed, anytime he's talking about it, he just seemed like a guy who had no respect for the fans, and they had very little respect for him as well. He was just here to try and prove what he could do, and then he was going to go into a bigger job in England. Danny Rule, well, he did that. He didn't go to England. He ends up in Austria, the Red Bull Corporation. But he's come along, and at times he seems like he understood us really well, but a lot of the time he wasn't getting phased by his Danny Rule. I think that the reason we liked him so much was because he wasn't Russell Martin. He was a guy that had followed Russell Martin, so could do no wrong for a while. And then he did start doing wrong, 4 straight defeats, which is something we hadn't done for years. And I feel as if, he was always going to be leaving anyway, and he did leave. He was just here for the short term, so he was selling us a story of being here long term. Not in a great way, but he wasn't expecting to leave anytime soon, and he left very, very soon. Derek McInnes is here forever. Derek McInnes is a Rangers man. He's never going to leave Scotland. This is his home. This means the world to him. This is Derek McInnes' world. This is when he tells us that it's his ambition to be here. Now, it's my ambition to be Rangers manager or to play for Rangers. That doesn't mean to say I'm going to be any good at it. I wasn't very good at it. But that's why I couldn't. That's why I was only on the bench when we beat Juventus that night. But it's no about your ambition. It's no about, but we know that Derek McInnes has got enough about him to do something, I think, with this Rangers team. Certainly when it comes to domestic stuff anyway. I just feel there's an authenticity there about the fella. I also feel that, and this is going to sound completely crazy, it's going to annoy Rangers supporters and make Celtic supporters or Hibs supporters laugh out loud, but the fact that it's so shit, we're not messing about anymore. This is proper shit. We've got to the crisis straight away. There's no continually drawing. Like today, if we hadn't managed to get it, we didn't get that second goal, and Hibs hadn't scored though, it'd be like, well, there's definitely signs of improvement. It's kind of mealy-mouthed, it's half-arsed. There's a temptation to give guys a second chance who weren't performing today at all, to not rip it all up and start again. Now we know, but we've definitely got to rip it all up and start again. It's not the continual draws thing we were getting last season under Russell Martin until we're getting beat 6-0 in Bruges. It's okay, we've lost 2-1 to Jagiellonia. We've got a massive, massive task ahead of us on Thursday night. We beat Ludogorets Razgrad in January by a single goal at Ibrox. That's the only game in 12 we have won in Europe, and thrown away our Europa League legacy has kind of crept up on us over the course of 3 managers. The Europa League is a Backrooms thing. The Europa League last season was total Backrooms. I'm sorry you haven't seen this film, because I've spoiled it for you, but also you don't get what I'm talking about. But it was a kind of sick, shallow, a kind of criminal, ugly version of what we've been in the Europa League group stages, when it was, even if the first time it was the Swiss style system, when there was 4 games played at Ibrox in the group stage. And we end up going through in 8th place, winning a home at Union St Gilloise, everybody else slips up. It was magnificent. Something that was really, really fun last season. Every game, it's Rangers in the Europa League. It's at Ibrox. We're playing Roma. We're playing big teams. There is a big crowd there, but there's no atmosphere. It's not the proper Rangers Europa League atmosphere. It's not anything like a proper Rangers Europa League performance that has been drilled into us by Steven Gerrard from the start of 2018-2019 season. That is something I feel I've got to say. We're not noticing this. We're so busy concentrating on the domestic scene that what we're throwing away in Europe's really precious. But I've not noticed that what we're throwing away in the league. It was Dundee United. 12th of April or something like that, back early to mid-April is the last time we actually won a competitive match at Ibrox. That's unbelievable. And now we've got to provide our first win at Ibrox since April, and only our second win in 13 European games this all on Thursday night to get Jagiellonia Bialystok out. Because if we slip out of the Europa League and go into the Conference League, and it's a Conference League playoff, with no guarantee that we're not going to get put out of Europe altogether, that'd be a massive, massive body blow and a huge statement that it wouldn't be permissible, but it would be part of the plan if we had beaten both Dundee United at Tannadice and Hibs here today. We're prioritising domestic this season, and it's almost symbolic that we've slipped out of the Europa League, which is a shorter, to go into the Conference League, which has got a shorter group stage as we prioritise the league. But that's not what's happening here. We're just terrible. We're just terrible every time we take to the field. It's not happening at all. That is 3 competitive games this season. We've conceded 5 goals across the 3 of them. We've only scored 1 goal in each, and it's just not been anywhere near good enough. My only hope is that it's so bad that Derek McInnes now has total licence to do whatever he requires to do. He can chop and change that team without losing the dressing room, because the dressing room has just lost itself in the course of the last 3 games. Things can only get better, Trips. Thank you so much for your time, folks, especially the folk who are Rangers supporters who come on here just to hear about what I thought about the game itself, because that's when I lost all energy and all will to live. So thanks so much, folks. I'll buck up my ideas for the preview pod ahead of the Jagiellonia Bialystok game, and do what you can to salvage your weekend, folks. I'll be back to you on Wednesday night with a review of the Odyssey. Thanks.